Hey guys, welcome back. Let's get started with another playlist. So last week we discussed how this trend line was a potential springboard, and we saw that we slow grinded up and then had a massive move on Friday. So okay, let's look at why we had a massive move on Friday, right? It was a simple triangle structure breakout at the bottom. You can see this blue line was acted as resistance, acted as resistance, acted as resistance, bottom line acted as support, right? And when we broke it, you saw the massive move we had and we filled this gap, right? So now to further proceed, again, we have three scenarios and I'm going to go over all of those, right? First, I'm going to go through the internal wave structure and then I'm going to remove it so it's easier to see. I, I, I think personally that we're in a wave 4 and a wave 3, so I do think that it could probably dip 38880 at most, right? Probably you can see this is a channel that we have been in. We could potentially try to retest it or a little, I'd say 3890, right? Before we have the fifth wave and the third wave. And I think that finishes Monday and we pull back into Tuesday, potentially Wednesday, right? Before we push up to the top of that channel. So let me remove the rest of this, right? So it's easier to see. You can see that this entire structure is an ABC, and if I go to the 4-hour chart, you'll be able to see that we push to the top of the channel at 4,000, I'd say 4030, 4040, and that would be a pretty decisive point in the market because we know this was a trend line acting as resistance and it could have implications on what the market does here. I feel like whether you're bullish or bearish, right, when we come here, we will dip, right? The size of the dip will kind of determine, right, are we going to go down, make a new low, right? That's scenario number one. Number two is you can see around 4030, 4080. When we do have the bigger dip, I'm watching to see if we make a higher low, right? If we do end up, making a higher low, I'd say about 3840. In a more bearish case, 3800, I would again look to see, right? You can see bigger picture. This is an ABC in this scenario where I assume we have bottom. And if we do make a higher low, I would think that we push to the top of this trend line around 4300, 4400. So again, that is my more bullish take on the market. But as you can see, I am monitoring, right, both scenarios to see whether if we were to hit the top of this channel, like when we pull back, are we going to make a higher low, right? If we make a higher low and hold these levels, what are the levels we can go to? And lastly, I'm not going to completely rule out the bear case either, right? Again, today's gap up or gap down will kind of tell us whether this will actually happen, but you can see this is actually the thing we broke down from. We're retesting it. So it's very possible that the entire bullish sequence, right, could have ended here and we actually come down to make a dip already versus in both these cases, I have us testing above 4,000, right, before the dip happens. And in this case, this could act as significant resistance. But as long as we hold over 3880, 3870, I think the move higher, at least to the top of the wedge, is very probable, right? You can see if we start to break under 3820, that's when I consider shorting to 3,500, 3,400. So this is obviously the bear case, right? We can be biased. We have to prepare for every scenario, and it's what I have for the bears. This is a pretty decent spot to have a massive rejection, but again, in both, like I showed you the internal wave count, right? I did have us dipping down, so I'm not worried yet, right? But we're always prepared, right? We know all three scenarios, and whichever the market turns, we can henceforth trade that way. So this is what I have, for the market. So let's go over this week's watch list, right? The first one I have is Beyond, right? And you can see we've had the most volume. Again, it could be due to rebalancing, but since this massive sell-off and move up, you can see we've had the most volume in almost, I'd say, 1.5 months, right? So I think Beyond is a pretty nice watch, right? You can obviously, if the market does somehow end up playing this bear case, you could play both ways because as long as it holds over 25, it has a pretty good shot at earning the 31 and 35, right? That's a pretty nice squeeze. That's almost like 34%. And I have the trigger, you can see I have it over this resistance line, right? So if it crosses over 26.5, then I think it has a nice shot of running higher. So if, let's say, most people who are biased to the bull side are not prepared for the bear side, right, we know for a fact that if beyond rejects, right, and it starts to break 24, it's very likely, going to come down at least to 21. In which case, right, we still have, a 10-15% move to the downside, which we can play. So again, calls over 26, right? And if we do reject and come down, we can play puts to 21.20. So those sort of the bear and bull cases and beyond. I think it'll be pretty nice to play it next week. The next one I have is Nvidia. And again, I have it, just follow through. Like if I zoom out, right, you can see this is the channel that held as support, right? And this is the channel that's holding as resistance, resistance, resistance. So I do think that we could, right, at minimum, try to push up to the top of this channel, which is also the 1.618 fib and previous resistance, so 181. So as long as we hold over 171, we can see 175, 181. And then again, I feel like Nvidia would kind of be at 181 when the market would kind of be near 4,000. So if you wanted to, try to scale into puts, you can try to play the, the move lower. Again, whether you were bullish or bearish, it was, going to dip. Whether it makes the higher low is kind of the question of the matter. So that's why I have Nvidia. Like I feel like you can play it both sides, and that's why I have calls, right? And again, you can play puts if we do move up to 181. The next one is Vale. Like I have not changed this chart in over a year, and so far it's been playing up pretty well. So I feel like if it does bounce into Monday, Vale would make a pretty nice dip to the downside because again, commodities are doing pretty poorly. And I do think that Vale is a very cheap, it has cheap premiums, right? So anyone can play them, and it does have a pretty bearish, macro and technical chart. So that's why I have Vale puts on this week's watch list. The next one is SC, and I feel like SC, right? You saw that I had CRM on last week's watch list, right? We had a massive move to the upside, about 10%. So I feel like SC could do the same because if you compare CRM and SC, I feel like SC is a lot more lagging. So if we do break over 81, 82, I do think that 85 and 90, right? And if you're lucky, you can probably run 105. Like I feel like it could have one of the moves. So that's why I have SC on this week's watch list. And if it starts to break below 70, right, then I'd be bearish for it to come down to like $50. So that's why I have SC on this week's watch list. The next one is Rivian. So a lot of EVs have been running, and Rivian has, again, this is again the channel, right? It's been in and it has consolidated out of this channel, and now it's trying to break over it. So I feel like you can see this is again the downward trending MA, right? And this is the downward trending channel. So if it does split, right, if it does split over 30.5, 31, I think Rivian would be a stock to watch because I feel like it's absolutely going to rip, right? And if it breaks below 26, 27, right, then you can play it down to 21 and 18. So both sides, it should offer pretty good risk reward. And that's why I have Rivian on this week's watch list. And the last one, again, another EV, right? But again, Tesla, you can see this purple line here is downtrend resistance. Same as Rivian, we are consolidating, right? So I feel like both Rivian or Tesla, as long as Tesla stays over 735, I feel like 780 is definitely going to happen, right? If it can break over 780, then I think it can go to like 840-ish. But yeah, I think this is likely to reject here. And if it, false breakdown, then again, you can see this is the trend line. It held a support on Tesla. We have bounced off of it on most places, right? I feel like we can retest 650. So those are the bull and bear cases on Tesla. And that's all I have for this week's watch list. All right. Be vigilante and have a good week.